there's more to it. And as you look at the general plan, the thing that glues it together is staff, the community, and policymakers' intent to create something that will bind our community together. And there's a series of principles in that document. If you go and read it, in fact, I think it's quite interesting, especially tonight, that we had a chapter that was introduced for the very first time called Community Character. Never been in there before. And then it was introduced in our general plan for the first time. And if you look at some of the goals, there's a goal called Complete Neighborhoods. And I thought I'd just read a quote from our general plan because I think it has some relevance for what we're talking about tonight. Just two, and they're brief. Quote, more than any other physical feature, Fremont's neighborhoods define the city and shape its sense of community. The next one says the objective across the city is to make each Fremont neighborhood complete with a variety of housing choices, community services, and an identifiable center that serves as a gathering place for its residents. That would have been the kind of community Alexis de Tocqueville would have designed. And I noticed, I reject the notion, someone made the comment that, you know, when you do development, you are going to inevitably have people who will oppose you. And that's correct. Absolutely correct. Inevitably. I don't care what development you're going to do, people will want to oppose it. That is correct. But the preponderance of complaints have to do with things like traffic. It's very interesting that when you hear the people and the Kimber community talking about the opposition to, and I think the right, to the change in the general plan, you don't hear or read about traffic. What you hear the community saying is, please don't devastate my community. And that makes sense because since 1973, people have went to that Kimber Park area, and them and their kids and their friends, and they played tennis, they've traveled together, they've talked about lives together, they talked about their family, they talked about the things that in those conversations they came together as community. I didn't find it appalling that there was a group of people walking through. In fact, it struck me the diversity of that community. That's one of our challenges as a community, is as we become more diverse, what can we do to bring people of different cultural backgrounds together? Kimber's done it successfully. They're a model. If I were to pick one neighborhood in the city and say, wow, they've created a center of community, it'd be Kimber. And it makes sense. Because when Chappelle, who by the way is a big supporter of Santa Clara University, developed that community, they did it with an absolutely unequivocal, clear intent that that area would always be recreation and open space. There was a lake that was supposed to be at the back. Come on, they had an intent to put houses there? Never. Never. So beyond just the marking down, I want to talk to you about, because as I've sat through on this, I wanted to think about what really is fair to a developer. What is really fair to developers? So I want to talk to you a little bit, if I could, about what a developer does. This is what I do. I've been doing it for 20, 25 years. There's a reason why developers who have built literally thousands and thousands of homes in the city of California, in the city of Fremont, have never developed that property. There's a reason. You don't think entities like Ropes and Homes, Summerlin Homes, KB Homes, Signature, take your pick, have never developed there. Because this is what they do. You go out to the property, and you say, wow, that's a really nice piece of property. I'd like to develop it. And you start talking to the owner. Would you consider selling it? I notice it's a tennis court, but it's got a lot of open space in the back. I'm interested. And let's say you were able to come to agreement that, in fact, your price is you're going to buy the property. You would never, ever buy the property unless you had a due diligence period where you would investigate, wait a second, I think it's worth this, but that's if I can get residential development. So I'm going to do due diligence. Here's what I would do as a developer. I would go to the city. What do you think? I'm thinking about developing that property. Now, I should note, as I looked at the general plan designation, forgive my voice here, as I looked at the general plan designation, I know as a developer that it's general. It's over the neighborhood. You heard the comment. You see those little dots? It's over the whole neighborhood. Because if you look at our general plan, it's general. So what do? I go to the prevailing document, the PD. I go look at the PD, and the PD is absolutely unequivocal. There's a reason why they would have to get a major amendment to a PD, because it is a major, major change from the intent of what that project was originally developed for. And I would look at the PD and I'd say, wow, it's supposed to always be open space and recreational. I think I have a problem here. But I wouldn't stop there, because I'd be a persistent developer. So I go to the preliminary title report. And we noted somebody made the comment, purchase agreement is not a recorded document. Good comment. It's true. The grant deed is. The grant deed on the property is a recorded document. And on the grant deed, they reference the restrictions on the property. So I would do my due diligence, and I would go to my title officer, and I'd say, can you give me all the underlying documents so I can read them? And I would read them. And they'd say, it's pretty clear. It's restricted. And I'd say, I'm out of the deal now. I'm not going to close escrow. And I'd leave. And I bet you there have been some. We heard that there have been developers who've been through this process. I can guarantee you those 3 or 4 times that I think someone mentioned that they had been before this council or since 1973, that's what they did. Because that's what every developer does. They have a due diligence period. It's like you buying a house. You would never buy a house until you did a roof inspection, termite inspection, and figured out the property was really what you intended it to be. And if it wasn't, you back out. There's a big, big difference here. The developer made a decision that they were just going to close escrow. And it pains me. I don't like to see people lose money. But the developer made a significant mistake. I think it was because that developer, who I happen to personally know, and don't think she's the villain that everybody or some people might think she is, because I don't. I know her. She's not. She got bad, bad advice from the consultants that surrounded her, who convinced her that it was a good idea, and don't worry, we'll prevail. Because all we need is 3 votes out of council. Or in this case, maybe, I still 3. I don't know how it would work out. That was the advice. And so what does she do now? If I have all that money in that project, I'm going to fight to the bitter end. And I think as a function of that, made some really, really bad decisions as it related to interacting with the community. Now, I will tell the community, the tennis courts may in fact not be viable. It's been a long time since those tennis courts have been. They may not be economically viable, but nobody put a gun to that person's head and said, you have to buy this tennis court. If you don't want a tennis court, you don't want to run it, it's not viable, don't buy it. There are other infill pieces of property that you can speculate on. But the developer decided to buy it anyway. So what does that mean? I think at the end of the day, it might be developable, but now it should be through a general plan amendment. Why? Because the compelling argument for doing anything on that property should rest with the developer, not the community. Our staff did the right thing. They are doing a general plan update for a city that is 96 square miles or whatever it is, with the intent on creating community. And I reject the notion that somebody made that our staff is biased. I'm offended by it. The notion that our staff is biased. Because it's not the case. So at the end of the day, the general plan, the staff did the right thing. The intent is to create community. That's what their intent is. And I should note, one of the problems that the developer or their representatives won't tell you is if it doesn't get changed in the general plan tonight, the general plan will go forward, probably next week. If it doesn't get changed, the general plan density that right now is a general designation that covers all of Kimber and just happens to have been, unfortunately, overlaid on that area where you know as a developer, I'm going to go look at the PD. Now it gets narrowed just to the 12.5 acres. Now you have the general plan designation just on that piece of property. Now you have a stronger precedent or stronger argument to make as a developer in the future that, look, I've got general plan designation on my property. It's much weaker if they had to go back and do it with it over that general area. So it should be changed. It should be changed to private open space. If they want to do something, I've done general plan updates. You do a general plan update and your map at the same time. You do it parallel with each other. It's not a complicated process. I've done it numerous times. But you have to make a compelling argument for why that makes sense. So let's go down that road. Let's not take a document, this document, that has 215,000 people in mind and change it for one piece for something that doesn't build community. I think you know how I'm going to vote on this. But those are my comments.